Today we're here at the CCIFS here in Chongqing, and joining me now is the guest Tan Chi-king. He's the Consul General of the Republic of Singapore in Chengdu, and is going to join us to describe the role of the consulate in the China-Singapore Strategic Connectivity Demonstration Project. This year marks the 30th year of diplomatic relations between China and Singapore. What have been the greatest achievements in economic partnership and cultural exchange?
Singapore and China, we established our diplomatic relations in October 1990, but actually our exchanges and our relationship dates back before that. Way back in 1976, Singapore PM, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, made his first visit to China, and he met with all the Chinese leaders, including then Chairman Mao. And in 1978, then Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping made his first visit to Singapore, and I think that exchange of visits really started the relationship between Singapore and China. At the moment, we have three government-to-government projects between Singapore and China. They are namely the Suzhou Industrial Park, the Tianjin Eco City, and then the Singapore-China Chongqing Strategic Connectivity Demonstration Initiative, or we call it CCI for short. Chongqing Connectivity Initiative. I think these three projects, dating back from the 1990s to the CCI in 2015, they really reflect the changing, the nature of the relationship between Singapore and China, whereby the nature of our cooperation changes in accordance with what China's developmental needs. And I think this are testament to the very robust relationship that we have with China. Since 2013, if I recall correctly, China has been Singapore's largest trading partner, and Singapore has been China's largest foreign investor for some years now. We signed our free trade agreement in 2008, and I think what is also noteworthy is that we actually made a decision to upgrade the free trade agreement in 2018, and the upgrade came into effect last year. So again, it is a relationship which is not standing still. It's a relationship which progresses with the times, and we constantly update it and look for ways in which we can further deepen and enhance relationship. Of course, beyond the economic terms, people-to-people relations remain very robust between Singapore and China. In 2019, pre-COVID, Singapore welcomed 3.5 million Chinese tourists to Singapore. That may not seem like a big number in China, but it is certainly a big number for Singapore. And I think over the years we have welcomed over 55,000 Chinese officials for various study visits to Singapore. Even despite or during the COVID-19 pandemic this year, the exchanges have not stopped. President Xi Jinping and Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, they had a phone call in July to reaffirm the very strong relationship and to express support for each other. Director of the Foreign Affairs Office, Yang Jiechi, and Foreign Minister Wang Yi also made visits to Singapore in the second half of this year. Between Singapore and China, the mutual exchange of medical aid and supplies during the respective heights of our COVID-19 pandemics also reflects the very strong relationship between our two peoples and governments.
For people unfamiliar with the topic, what exactly is the China-Singapore Demonstration Initiative on Strategic Connectivity?
That's rather a mouthful, so let's call it CCI for short, Chongqing Connectivity Initiative. So it is the third government-to-government project after our two earlier projects in Suzhou and Tianjin between the governments of Singapore and China. It focuses basically on the key themes of modern connectivity and modern services between Singapore and Chongqing. And we identified four key pillars of cooperation. These are namely the transport and logistics sector, the aviation, financial services, and ICT. So this project was launched in 2015 during President Xi's state visit to Singapore and witnessed by the two leaders. And since then, I think over the past, we just recently celebrated the 5th anniversary of the CCI in November, just earlier this month. And I think we have seen good progress in the CCI over these past 5 years. Maybe I just highlight a few key outcomes of the CCI. I think first and foremost, I guess, is the identification and development of this new International Land Sea Trade Corridor, or we call it the ILSTC, which basically serves as a link between the Belt and the Road of China's BRI initiative. It is also what we see as the shortest gateway for Chongqing to link up to the maritime border. And therefore it actually helps to facilitate trade between Western China and Southeast Asia. Since the ILSTC was developed, I think we have seen the movement of goods through the ILSTC shorten the time taken from the time that it normally requires to something like between 7 to 13 days. So this greatly facilitates trade between Western China and Southeast Asia. In terms of aviation, I think we actually have seen the development of the Chongqing-Singapore air route very robustly. Prior to COVID, I think we have up to 14 weekly flights between Singapore and Chongqing, and the number of passengers actually tripled since 2015. In terms of ICT, I think the most noteworthy achievement so far is actually the establishment of the International Dedicated Connectivity, which is a dedicated information highway, superhighway between Singapore and Chongqing. I think this provides the infrastructure and the framework for greater cooperation in ICT and its related industries. And here we are at the Financial Summit today. Yeah, so in terms of financial services, I think we hope to partner with Chongqing basically to see how we can further develop the connectivity between our respective financial markets. I think all these four pillars as enshrined in the theme of modern connectivity and modern services is a reflection of the new mode of cooperation between Singapore and China.
So what has the role been of the Singapore consulate in Chengdu in facilitating the CCI?
Basically, the Singapore consulate in Chengdu, we cover three territories of Sichuan, Chongqing and Shanxi. Yeah, so Chongqing is one of the territories that they're responsible for. I would divide maybe my role into three key parts. One, of course, is actually to promote good relations with local governments. To the end, I think the Singapore Consulate General has been facilitating the frequent high-level exchanges and political exchanges between both sides. We've had Chongqing Party Secretary Chen Ming visiting Singapore last year, and over the past 5 years, we've had various Singapore leaders making visits to Chongqing as well. Of which I think the one to really note will really be the the holding of the JCBC meeting, which is the Singapore-China bilateral mechanism, which was held in Chongqing last year and was co-chaired by Singapore Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat and China Vice Premier Han Zheng. Yeah, so I think the Singapore Consulate General facilitates these high-level exchanges between the two sides. The second area of my work, I think, would be to really promote the interests of Singaporeans and Singapore enterprises in the territories that I cover. So in that sense, we work very closely with various departments of the Chongqing Municipal Government to really make sure that the operating environment in Chongqing, we work very closely with various departments of the Chongqing Municipal Government on this, and we also offer consular assistance to Singaporeans in Chongqing for those who need it. The third area, I think, would really be the fact that because we are here on the ground, we would like to understand, have a deeper understanding of the development prospects and the various and the latest developments in Chongqing. And that is where we interface with a wide spectrum of opinion shapers and stakeholders in Chongqing to really better understand the development prospects of Chongqing and to be able to share them with the Singapore government and with Singaporeans. Yeah.
And finally, I want to ask, what are the main challenges for joint construction of the Land Sea Corridor? I
would describe this more of maybe as the work that we still need to do on the ILSTC, the International Land Sea Trade Corridor, rather than challenges. Ultimately, the governments provide or establish a platform and provide the framework, and we really need the companies to take it up and to make it economically sustainable. I would say that there are three areas. First, of course, is that since the ILSTC was first established, we have seen it gradually becoming a viable route for the transportation of goods along the ILSTC, which shortens the amount of time taken to transport goods from Western China to Southeast Asia. I think both sides are working to further increase the uptake and volume of this. For that, I think we need to continue to work towards increasing the awareness of this ILSTC among businesses and enterprises, not just in Chongqing and Singapore, but also maybe to stakeholders in other Western China provinces. to European stakeholders using the China-Europe Rail Service, and as well as to governments and companies in Southeast Asia and ASEAN. In that way, then I think we can make the ILSTC increase the volume of goods move along the ILSTC and increase its economic sustainability. Second, Chongqing and Singapore enterprises to really demonstrate the value of the CCI ILSTC, they have set up a multimodal distribution and connectivity center in Guoyuan Port. Yeah. The construction of that DC center, as we call it, has just begun, and we should continue to work towards the upgrading of the railway terminal nearby, the Yuzhou railway terminal, so that it can accept international cargo, rail cargo, on a regular basis, and that will really bring up so-called the demonstrative effect that Singapore and Chongqing enterprises, that will really bring up the demonstrative effect that Singapore and Chongqing enterprises can bring to the CCI, for the ILSTC. And thirdly, I think while the ILSTC has shortened or reduced the time taken for the transportation of goods, there's still work to be done in terms of the digitization and the digitalization of trade along the ILSTC. Singapore and the Chinese government are currently in pilot trials to link up our trade windows. We call it our national single windows. I think there's more room, there's more that we can do in terms of digitizing the customs clearance process and to even greater facilitate trade along the ILSTC.